the World Nomads Podcast bonus episode. Hear amazing nomads sharing their knowledge, stories, and experience of world travel.
Welcome to this episode featuring amazing nomads, or in this case, it's amazing these nomads are alive.
Look, your honeymoon is supposed to be the most joyous time of a young couple's life together and, you know, set things in stone for the way you're going to be living on. But as our next guest revealed, their year-long honeymoon was travelled by disaster after disaster, including being rescued more than once. Yes, they are World Nomads Insurance customers, but we love them anyway. Welcome, Leah and Jeremy Garcia.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for fessing up to everything that happened to you, I think I've got to say first.
Well, wouldn't we know if they were claiming some of these disasters?
Yep, we've made a few claims. You guys took care of us, and we appreciate you allowing us to continue to purchase World Nomads for our next disastrous trip.
I can recommend a couple other companies for you if you really want.
Yeah.
Hey, look, first of all, a year-long honeymoon. It's a pretty brave decision to go away for that long. What was behind that?
So we got married, we were like 25, and I had known personally that I wanted to take a long trip. I wanted to like spend some time traveling. I'd known that since I graduated college. And so when I met Jeremy, I think I told him on our second date, I was like, hey, just so you know, in like a year, I'm going to leave and go on this long trip. And he was like, oh, cool. And I was like, do you want to come? And he was like, yeah. So we kind of had this like idea, you know, at the time it seemed like I was just talking, but I was like fully committed. And then about a year and a half later, after we got married, we were in our, you know, mid-20s, and we thought, this is the time. This is before we have kids. We don't own a house. We don't have a car. We're at a point in our careers we can take off and do it. And if we don't do it now, there's a chance we never get a chance to do it.
Yeah, so what was the plan? Where was on your list? Where were you trying to go?
So the plan was that we were trying to decide between Southeast Asia and South America, and eventually we landed on South America. And then we had this really out there,
the worst idea
where we thought, you know what, after all of this, I'm sure that we're going to have the health and the physique to do the Appalachian Trail.
We literally thought that after 4 or 5 months of backpacking in South America, we would be qualified to through hike the Appalachian Trail, which, if you've seen a picture of us, you can just tell, like, that's a terrible idea. That did not happen. But we did spend a wonderful 4 out of 6 months in South America. And then we spent some time in Europe, some time in Central America, and some time road tripping around the United States as well.
We saw the Appalachian Trail.
You flew over it, yes. Yeah. All right, so come on. Now you admit that you're both a little accident prone, and as you've just told us, you're, not sort of, the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie types, right? Well, come on. So what happened? So you had to be rescued. Oh, Kim's just like...
Oh, I feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
So you're accident prone and unfit.
Yeah. We had this idea that going on this honeymoon, we would transform into those sort of people that you see on Instagram, like those travel couples that are just really blonde, and they have like 25 abs, and they're super fit, and they do yoga every morning. We just thought that's what it looks like when you travel for a long time. We loved Colombia. We had an amazing time. But our very first activity, we were going to do a 6-day-long hike through the jungle to La Ciudad Perdida, which is it's buried in the middle of the Colombian jungle. And the minute we arrived in Colombia, we knew that was not going to happen because it was 1,000 degrees, and we're from Northern California, and we hiked a lot. We had prepared a little bit for the trip. We've gone hiking every weekend, but it was in the Bay Area where the weather is wonderful and it's not hot. And we canceled that hike within the first 2 weeks of our trip. And after that, we really should have taken that as a warning sign. So 3 weeks later, we are in San Gil, Colombia, which is an adventure town. And Jeremy has discovered this adventurous side of himself. He wants to rappel down this waterfall called Huancuri. And for no good reason, I thought, okay, yeah, I'm on an adventure. I'm an adventurous person now. I'll do it too. And it did not end well. Within 10 minutes, I was crying and panicking and had to be rescued. And that was just the first of many disasters.
So how do you get rescued from the middle of a waterfall? What do they have to do? Somebody has to rappel down and get you?
Yeah.
So he had to basically throw his own rope down.
Which I thought was my rope falling, and I was convinced I was going to plummet to my death.
You thought that a rope had like snapped and done like a cartoon. Person stays in place and the rope falls?
I mean, I had literally made it 5 feet down before I froze in fear and had a panic attack and just started screaming. I mean, there's GoPro footage from my husband. You can hear me screaming over the waterfall. That's but, in actuality, I was safe the whole time. Like, I was never in any danger. Somebody rappelled down and pretty much took me like in their lap, tied their harness to my harness, and rappelled me down as I screamed in his ear the entire way. And there's this Colombian word that they use for everything, tranquilo. So the whole time the guy's like, tranquilo, tranquilo, like you're fine, we're not going to die. And I'm screaming, and I get to the bottom, and everybody's like, tranquilo, you're alive, you're good. And finally, after I like stopped crying eventually and stopped shaking, I asked them, like, how often does this happen? How many people have you had to rescue? And he just looked at me and he said, "You're the first one."
Oh. And what were you thinking, Jeremy, at the time this was happening? Were you worried about your new bride?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, well, this was a really short-lived marriage. And I mean, honestly, I stopped and I thought, like, I can't help her at all. And it was really tough because she's right next to me.
Yeah, you can't rappel up a waterfall. You can only go one way.
And she's like right within reach, but even though I can reach her, I don't know how I'm supposed to help her, and so I felt pretty powerless. And so the only thing that I could do was basically rappel as fast as I could down, and that's what I did.
So he had a terrible time. It was really not an enjoyable adventure for him.
You get down, and this whole time you're like freezing because the water's really cold, and there was all this adrenaline, and so I hit the rocks, and there's slippery rocks, and my legs forgot how to walk, and so I'm like newborn deer walking all the way to the guy.
So after this experience, you decided it would be a good idea to have a go at the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, right?
Oh yeah, that was actually our last adventure. We had a few in between that were also terrible. And so the idea when I created our itinerary was that we would be doing these progressively more challenging hikes. And, we do a couple in Colombia, we do a couple in Ecuador, and by the time we get to Peru, we're going to be so good at hiking that the Inca Trail will just be no problem. And we made it a whole day through the 4-day Inca Trail. And at the end of this terrible day, we'd basically been about 2 hours behind our group the entire time. And so we finally arrive. It's after dark, and our guide pulls us aside and very nicely says, "Look, we've been tracking your time. It's not great. Here are your options. You can just swallow your pride, turn around, hike back, take the train to Machu Picchu, and we'll meet you there. Or you can start hiking at 4 a.m, and you'll arrive at about 8 p.m., and this is day 2. So this is Dead Woman's Pass, 13,000 feet of elevation, and you're just climbing stairs up all day." So we'd be hiking for like 16 hours, and we just, at that point, this was like 5 failed hikes in. We just looked at each other, and I had told Jeremy we shouldn't be doing this. So this is like a point of contention in our marriage at this point. He was like convinced we could do it, and I like looked at him and I was like, "You really want to hike at 4 a.m. to 8 p.m.?" And we were just like, "No, screw it."
In my defense, the deposit was a lot of money.
We lost a lot of money.
So what did you do? You said screw it. Did you just hike back down?
Yeah, we turned around. They sent a guide with us. Yeah,
they sent a guide with us, and it was a little bit awkward because I think most people that do the Inca Trail, I think that's their destination is just the Inca Trail, and they're
all really well prepared. I mean, it was like we showed up to a CrossFit gym in like stained sweatpants, holding a donut, and everybody else was like super, super fit.
So that we can get by. We speak enough Spanish. We've done enough, and they assumed that we needed a guide for the 2 days remaining or 3 days before we would take the bus to Machu Picchu. So they sent us with a guide, and we were basically like hanging out with him for 3 days.
And we had to put him up, and we felt so bad because we're backpackers. Went to the cheapest, like dingiest hostel that we could find, and we were like $5 a night for a room. Perfect. And our guide took one look at it and like went to the luxury hotel down the street and was like, "I'll see you guys in the morning. Like, here's the train station address. We'll meet there." Yeah.
Oh, you're making me laugh. Seriously. That's so cool. But tell us about something that you did where you needed the help of World Nomads. There's nothing we can do to help with that, is there, Phil? That's just like bad luck, guys.
Yeah.
So these are all processed. So please don't punish us. But I think one of our favorite ridiculous adventure horror stories was the BMW and the castle. After South America and after our Inca Trail failure, we literally went back home for a week, and then we booked a ticket like the next day to Europe. We were like, you know what, backpacking didn't work out. We're like, it's going to be fine. So we fly to Europe, and it's like, December, and it's Christmas markets, and everything's so different. And so we go to France. This is January. We had an idea to do a road trip, and they upgrade us to a BMW, like free of charge. And we're so excited. We're like, oh my gosh, like we've been backpacking for 5 months at this point. A BMW is so exciting. And we neglected to think about the fact that a large car in France is actually really more of a hindrance than anything else. So we are trying to drive through Nice. We're trying to navigate through the parking lot, and we're like trying our hardest, like to make sure nothing happens to the car. And then we somehow, and I don't even know what happened, but we noticed the next day that our the front light was kind of cracked. And we have no idea how this happened. We don't know if it was us. We don't know if it was another car. We may have parked it. Like, I have no idea. It just was cracked. And I'm like, oh God, like this is expensive BMW. Like, luckily I had a different insurance as well. So I was like, okay, we're covered on 2 different insurance. We're okay. And so I told Jeremy, I'm like, let's keep going. Like, it's just a cracked headlight. It's not the end of the world. We can get this covered. Let's keep going on this road trip. So the whole idea of the road trip is that we can do whatever we want. So we see this castle off in the distance, off the highway, and we're like, okay, this is an adventure. We're in a car, it's a castle. We're in France. Let's do this. So we start driving towards the castle, and we put it in our GPS, and we're just following this, like, British lady is telling us to keep driving. There's like this, like, creaky gate that we drive through because it's in French. It probably said do not enter, but we have no idea what that looks like in French. And then we keep driving, and suddenly we look around, and we're, like, in this castle. We're like in the courtyard. We're like in the courtyard of this French medieval castle. We have no idea. There's nobody around. There's no people. We have no idea how we got here.
But I see like a no parking sign, and I think if there's a no parking sign, clearly there have been cars in this vicinity. So maybe if we just keep going, and I look over, there's like a little arc of a hill, and I see the tops of little houses, and so I think houses, of course, there's going to be a road. Not realizing that in medieval towns they walked everywhere. So we go over this hill and through this tiny little archway to get to these houses, and then it's just a walking path. And now I'm just stuck.
Because they didn't build medieval castles for cars.
Now I'm just stuck on this hill in this, like, next to this fountain.
So I'm like, my default is just to scream and cry. So I'm screaming, crying in, like, the passenger seat. And Jeremy's like, we're going to do this. I'm going to do this. He starts backing up this gravel hill. It was terrible. It was like sand. We're like sliding, and he's backing up inch by inch. And I'm like, oh, we're going to ruin this BMW. We made it out without a scratch. I have no idea how. Like, the castle did nothing to that car. So we ended up filing for, like, the mysterious taillight out of nowhere and getting that covered. And, like, nothing happened with this castle that we definitely, like, should have, by all means, that should have killed us. So that was a weird one.
You think?
I don't really know what happened there.
That sounds fantastic.
And then the other really big one that you guys helped us out with so much was actually a family issue. We had my grandfather, he's 93 years old, and he's generally been in very good health, as long as I can remember. And this was actually a couple weeks later while we were still in France, we got a call from my dad saying that my grandfather is in poor health. He's in a hospital. He's not doing well, and he's 93. So we're like, this is it. We got to go. So we immediately booked a flight back to California. We're going to go take care of my grandfather. We cancel everything. World Nomads took care of the whole thing, helped us out with everything. It was so helpful. And we get there, and my grandfather is, like, fine. He's, like, screaming at nurses and orderlies at the top of his lungs. He's like shrieking. He's literally, I think it turns out what we realized a few weeks after taking care of him is that he'd almost like exaggerated it for sympathy. And like, it was like this whole 2-month saga where we kept having to go and take care of him. We'd leave and we'd be like, okay, bye, Grandpa Bob, you're going to be fine. We'd leave, we'd fly back. And then 2 weeks later, we'd get a call, Grandpa Bob's dying, for real this time, come back, we'd fly back out. We put him on hospice because he was dying. He was 93. We put him on hospice. And it was all exaggerated. He faked his own death, essentially, so that we could basically come and take care of him, and he could be waited on hand and foot. And we just saw him recently. He just celebrated his 95th birthday. I think he's aging backwards.
I also think he did this as an excuse because he was tired of eating healthy, and every time we see him, he's like, Jeremy, you got to give me cold beer. I need cold beer, and give me Chips Ahoy and a Carl's Jr. sandwich.
Always the Chips Ahoy.
Yeah, and I think he's living off of preservatives now.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
He's doing well. Yeah.
I love Granddad.
Oh, we love Granddad. Oh, that's awesome.
Great.
So look.
So we had one more claim that we filed with you guys. We were in Costa Rica, and this is at the tail end of our disastrous disastrous honeymoon. And Jeremy had developed this. Jeremy, it turns out, is much more adventurous than I am.
But I don't have the skill or the athleticism to back it up.
Yeah, he just likes it, and I hate it. It turns out. So Jeremy decides to go whitewater rafting. He kind of set himself a goal to go whitewater rafting everywhere that we went in South and Central America. And I went whitewater rafting once, and I hated it. So I never went again. And so it's like the last week of our honeymoon. He's like, come on, babe. It's 2-3 level rapids. It'll be fine. It was a 2, yeah. It was, all right, whatever. It was a 2. It felt like a 5. So he's like, this is going to be great. So I'm like, fine. This is the last time I'm going to do this. If I hate it, I'm never doing it again. So I sign up for it. We go whitewater rafting. I hate it so much. The entire time I'm having just this 3-hour-long panic attack. I swear I'm going to die. And sure enough, the next day, I have an ear infection that my whole head feels like it's going to explode. Like one time I try something adventurous and I get this horrible infection. So I had to delay our trip home, literally the last flight of our honeymoon. I have to delay it. I have to book another hotel in San Jose. I have to go to the hospital. They put a shot in my butt. It was awful. Like the last hospital week this happens. And that was our final nail in the coffin of our honeymoon.
Oh, so great! What a great!
But look,
story.
it hasn't put you off traveling. You write a travel blog and you love it, right?
Yeah, it turns out I really do love it. And after we got back from our trip, I couldn't give it up. I tried to go back to work, and I sat down at a desk for 5 minutes, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I just want to go travel. So Jeremy teaches full time, and I'm a full time travel blogger. So, I do, it turns out, still kind of have to put myself out there and do some adventures because our readers really love hearing about times that I have an awful time. Yeah. They love our fails. They love it when things go really bad for us. So we can't avoid it anymore. We've crafted it into our blog, and now we're kind of stuck with it. But we always book World Nomads anytime we go anywhere so that, when the inevitable happens, and it always does, we're covered.
Luckily, we're so accident-prone to that constant stream of content.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a point of difference.
We were in Bali.
So many travel bloggers, you've got to have a point of difference.
I know it's so honest about it as well, because it's not always great, is it?
No. As you said at the start of the chat, Leah, you think it's all, the Instagram looks beautiful, but the reality is very, very different.
Exactly what we wanted to kind of get across with our blog and with our Instagram. We're really we don't want you to look at us and think, oh, wow, they're living this perfect life. We want you to look at us and kind of be glad you're not living our life a little bit, and maybe see yourself there a little bit. We're just the worst travelers, and we have fun anyway, but nothing ever goes as planned.
gold. Love that chat. We will have a link to the blog Practical Wanderlust where you can read all those stories which ultimately make us feel good about ourselves. Plus, I think this episode actually calls for a shameless plug for World Nomads Insurance.
Yeah, indeed. Look, some people may be surprised to hear that with all the really good stuff that we do, all the things we publish, podcasts and videos and written content, we sell travel insurance. In fact, that's our sole means of conducting business. We don't book flights or sell hotel beds or anything like that, just travel insurance. You can come directly to our site at world-nomads.com and follow the links. But if you go to Jeremy and Leah's site, Practical Wanderlust, they're affiliate partners of ours. So if you buy the insurance through them, they will get a little commission from us as well, which is our way of saying thanks to people who love travel as much as we do.
And if you like the idea of being an affiliate partner, why not get in touch at podcasts@worldnomads.com?
Indeed, we'll send you the links to that too.
All right, we must not forget this.
Yeah, here at World Nomads, the information we provide about travel insurance, it is brief, I can't deny. Doesn't take into account your personal needs and doesn't include all terms or conditions you see or limitations, exclusions, and termination provisions of the travel insurance plan described. Now listen, coverage may not be available for residents of all countries, states, or provinces. Carefully read the policy available at world-nomads.com. For full description of coverage, it's time to check it out. Let's go. Hey.
Yo. Disclaimers have never been so entertaining. Next week, what's happening?
We're going to go to France.
Now, don't forget, you can get us by subscribing to us on iTunes. You can download the Google Play app. And you can also yell out to
Alexa and Google Home. Play the World Nomads Podcast, and they will.
Codpast. I wonder what that'd deliver up.
I don't know. it was either that or podcasts.
Play the World Nomads Podcast. Enjoy. See you next time.
Bye.
Amazing Nomads. Be inspired.